Dear kids, I often flip through my photo albums. It tells me so much about the past events of my family. All the photographs really fill me with a feeling of nostalgia. I'm sure you too must be doing it for fun. When we think about ourselves, that is, who am I, where did I come from? Okay, our parents or grandparents help us to find answers to all these questions. But if you want to know who our ancestors were, how they lived in the past, we will have to study history. So, in this chapter, we are going to learn about human history, various sources of history, then time frame in history, and the geographical framework of our history. So, when we think about history, we should know, first of all, human history. What is human history? Okay, so humans have different pasts. We should use the term past in plural form. Why? Because different groups of humans had different past life, right? Some were kings, some were administrators, some were military men, and while others were farmers, merchants, craftspeople, artisans, hunters, etc., etc. But each of them followed different practices, different lifestyle, and different customs. Okay, so now let's learn about what is history. History is a study of events, people, and their way of life in past. So we are learning about past. It tells us about the economy and the type of society there were. And it also tells us the types of clothes the people wear, their food habits, and their occupation, etc. And from the life of hunter-gatherer, what do you mean by hunter-gatherer? Hunter-gatherer means the people, those who hunted the animals and gathered food. Yeah. From the life of hunter-gatherer, the early human began cultivating land. They started the cultivation. Slowly, they moved towards the modern lifestyle that as we are now. So, the study of history allows how and why such changes have taken place over a long period of time. So, also how people gradually made discoveries and inventions which led to their development. Okay, so history also helps us to know our past and mold our future. So why we learn history? Why? Why? Because we should know, and history will help us to know the way of life, the gradual development, and how these developments have taken place, and to know about our past and to mold our future. Okay, so to make the study of our history easier, it is divided into three parts. That is prehistory, prohistory, and history. It's very simple. Let's see what is prehistory, what is prohistory, and what is history. Now, the first one, that is prehistory. Let's learn. Prehistory is the period for which there are no written records. Remember, there are no written records. We rely on archaeology to know about the lives and history of the people living during this period. Clear? So, in prehistory, we could not find any written records. So, archaeologists explore and excavate the remains to understand the history of or the prehistory of the people and civilization. So, let's learn about the next, that is prohistory. Prohistory is the period for which we find some written records. There were some written records, but they are few or yet to be deciphered. Example, Indus Valley civilization. So, Indus Valley civilization is the best example for prohistory. And now let's learn about the last, that is history. History is the period for which we have been able to decipher the written records of past events. That means we have enough records with us. Many of these records are found on rocks, clays and barks of the birds. Okay, so this is what the history. Prehistory means there are no written records. Through history there were some written records, and the history we have enough evidence about the history. So now we will learn something more about the sources of history. From where we will get all these types of sources. See, history is studied on the basis of records. So what is records? So in our school also we have different types of records, like anecdotal record, like our attendance list record, then unit test register record, then some other official records. If I want to know something about you, I can go and get it from the office, from the records. So the same way, the history also studied on the basis of some records of past events. Okay, so these records are known as the sources of history. Is it clear? What do you mean by sources of history? History is studied on the basis of records of past events. So this is known as the sources of history. Then the scholars, the person, those who study the past is known as, yes, right, historian. Yeah, the person, those who are studying about the past is known as historian. So we can divide the sources of history into two groups. To learn more easily, we can divide the sources into two groups. That is archaeological sources, and the next is literary sources. You have to be very careful while I am teaching this lesson. Okay, so archaeological sources include fossil remains, monuments, artifacts, inscriptions and coins. All these words are very familiar to you. And come to the next, that is literary sources. It includes manuscripts, scripts and languages, and the ancient literatures. So we will explain one by one. First one is fossil remains. What do you mean by fossil remains? Yes, fossil remains are the remains of plants, animals or human body parts from the past preserved in rocks, where we can see on rocks. So these have been buried for millions of years. Okay, these have been buried on rocks for millions of years. The imprints of hard body parts such as bone, skull, okay, like the hard body parts leave a permanent mark on the rocks. Okay, so it will leave a permanent mark like this. Okay, so the fossils are the main source of information about many species of plants and animals, especially that have become extinct. For example, any animal? Dinosaurs, right? Like about the dinosaurs and all, the fossils will help us a lot. Now come to monuments. Everybody is familiar with the word monument. What is monument? Yeah, a structure of building will come in your mind, right? Yes, right. Ancient buildings or structures such as stupas, temples, mosques, tombs, palaces, forts, etc., etc., etc. are known as what? Monuments, right? So they throw light on the social, religious and cultural life of the people of the period in which they were built, rebuilt and altered. Building, somebody will build, the next generation will rebuild, and the next generation may alter it. Okay, so these are the monuments, and the monuments help us to know the architectural style. What is architectural? The shape, the style of a building. Okay, so a beautiful examples we have. Can you say any monument's name like Taj Mahal? Okay, so I am going to explain about one beautiful example, that is Sanchi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, Sanchi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh is an important Buddhist monument. Okay, it is an important Buddhist monument. Its design and material tells us it was originally built of rocks during the period of Ashoka. Built, the word built you have to remember, it was built by Ashoka. Then later it was expanded and rebuilt during Sangha period. Okay, so it was expanded, built, that is rebuilt next, and some alternation also have happened. So an inscription in southern gate of the gate informs us it was added by King Shatakarmi. So in the gate there was an inscription. It tells us that this gate was added by King Shatakarmi of Satavahana dynasty. So the northern gate and the panels also depict stories from Jatakas. Okay, so here this is a beautiful example of built, rebuilt and the alternation. Now come to the next point, that is artifacts. Okay, artifacts. So what do you mean by artifacts? So those who are familiar with the Temple Run game, there you can see, find this artifact so that you can go to the next level. Is it? So artifacts is very simple. It is a human-made object such as seals, toys, like see some toys, some ornaments or pottery, or some tools. Okay, all these things are the examples of artifacts. And something like this, some toys and artifacts. Something is there, secret in it. You want to see some secret in it? See, something is there. Wow, collection of something so special. So these things, so artifacts are human-made objects such as seals, toys, tools and implements like ornaments, pottery have been found at various archaeological sites. Okay, so that tells us about the kind of people lived in and their occupation. So also help us to understand the social setup of that time. Is it clear? So artifacts? Very good. So now let us learn about the fourth point, inscriptions. What do you mean by inscriptions? The word itself says something, right? Script. Yeah, right. Inscriptions are the written records engraved on stones, pillars, clay or copper tablets, right? And sometimes you can see it on the caves and walls of temples and monuments. If you wish to come to my village, that is in Wayanad, obviously I will take you to the Edekal caves. There is a big cave and you can get into the inside and you can see the beautiful inscriptions are written over the walls. Clear? So they provide us names of kings and their administrations. I have a stone with me to show you. Look at this stone here. You can see something is written over there. I don't know how to read it. The historians may read it. Okay, I don't know how to read. Please watch it. So here you can see something written over here. So this is what inscription. Okay. So they are the reliable source of history about some people or any time of period. Clear? Now we will learn about the last point, that is coins. The word coin is very familiar to you, but we used to be familiar with the same, no? So we can see what is coin. So the study of coin is known as, you know, anybody, any guess? Study of coin. Somebody said, yeah, good. Numismatics. What is numismatic? The study of coins. So since they are made up of metals, they survived for many years. If it is of paper, it would have destroyed, right? So since they are made up of metals, they have survived for many years. They were issued by kings and merchants. So in some coins you can see some pictures. So here in all, see I have a collection, I will show you few. So these all are the old coins with me. Okay. See, all these are the coins, and in these coins I can see a lot of pictures, dates, everything is written over here. So it provides valuable personal information about rulers and the people who issued them. Okay, so all these things are the archaeological sources of history. We can conclude it again. The first one is fossil remains, the second one is monuments, the third is artifacts, then the inscriptions and coins, right? Now we will move to the next point, that is literary sources. Literary sources include manuscripts, scripts and languages, and ancient literature. So let's learn what is literary sources. What is literary sources? The written records of history is known as literary sources. Very good. So the written records of history is known as literary sources. These records were written on animal skins, clay, tablets, then rocks, pillars, walls and wood before the invention of paper. Okay, so after the invention of paper it will be obviously on papers. So let's see the first one, manuscripts. The early literary records were handwritten, right? So there are no printing machine. So it is handwritten. They are called manuscripts. Clear? The early literary records were handwritten and they are called manuscripts. Manuscripts were written on palm leaves, the bark of birch trees, and later on paper. I will show you some examples. See, all these are the manuscripts written on were palm leaves. Okay, can you see? See one. And this is the next. Something is written. I don't know which language it is. Okay, all these things are the manuscripts. Okay. Over the years, many of these manuscripts got destroyed because it's just something on the paper. Okay, so some of them are still preserved in temple, monasteries and archives. Okay, what do you mean by archives? Yeah, the place where historical documents, records and manuscripts are stored. Okay, so this is what? Manuscript. Now next come to the next point. Scripts and language. Script and language. Many ancient societies developed their script. Okay, they need to keep something in record, so they started making scripts. They gradually took in the form of language. Simple. The language depended upon the region where it was written. Okay, so some language include Prakrit, Pali, Sanskrit or Tamil. Okay, these are the languages familiar on that period. So for example, the Mahabharata and Ramayana were written in Sanskrit. Ramayana and Mahabharata were written in Sanskrit because they were authored in northern part of India where Sanskrit were the main language. So I have a Sanskrit script with me. I'm just trying to read it out. If you can, please recite after me. Okay. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsava Mamakaha Pandavascheva Kimakurvada Sanchaya. This is all about Kurukshetra. See, the Dhritarashtra said, on the holy plain of Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, when my offspring and the sons of Pandu had gathered together, eager for battle, what did they, O Sanjaya? This is what the meaning. So it's written in Sanskrit. So for example, I just read it up. Okay. So similarly, Silapadikaram and Manimekalai and Silapadikaram were written in Tamil speaking areas of South India. So the languages depend upon the region. Okay. And the last one is ancient literature. Most ancient literatures were memorized. Okay, most ancient literatures were memorized. Okay, they were passed on from one generation to the next orally. It's not written. Okay, I'm saying about the past. So they just passed it to one generation to another orally. Later, these were written down on palm leaves, barks of beech trees or animal skins. Clear? So ancient literature is classified into sacred or religious literature and non-religious or secular literature. Clear? So Vedas and Puranas are considered as sacred or religious because what? It contains the rituals, prayers and religious practices on the ancient period. Okay. So as we said, the literature, ancient literature is divided into two, religious and non-religious. So next is non-religious or secular. Okay, many historical accounts and biographies were written by poets and foreign travelers, classified as non-religious or secular literature. Okay, for example, Kautilya's Arthashastra Indica, written by Greek ambassador Megasthenes in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, and the writings of the Chinese traveler Fahian and Huan Sang. So these all are the examples of non-religious or secular literature. So they describe the political, social and economic life of a certain period of time. So now we will learn about a particular point, that is time frame in history. Okay, so can you think, so if the things are coming in a mixture, it will be too difficult for us to understand. So it is divided into different periods of time. Okay, so the historical events are classified according to the time in the form of BCE and CE. Okay, two divisions are there, BCE and CE. Let's see what is BCE. So how can we expand the term? So BCE means before Common Era. Before, C for Common, E for Era. So BCE stands for before Common Era. Clear? So this is also known as BC, before Christ. Before Christ. So that means before the birth of Jesus Christ. So the period before the birth of Jesus Christ is known as BC or BCE. Clear? Now come to the next, CE. C stands for Common and E stands for Era. So CE means Common Era. So this also known as AD, Anno Domini. Anno Domini. So this is the period after the birth of Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ is a person who divides the history into two. That is BCE and CE. BCE means before the birth of Jesus Christ. CE means AD. Now we are in AD. AD means after the birth of Jesus Christ. Clear? So now historians arrange the events of history in a sequence according to the time when they took place. Okay, the historians arranged in a period or in a sequence. Okay, this is called chronology. So very important, what do you mean by the term chronology? Chronology means historians arrange the events of history in a sequence according to the time when they took place. Clear? So this is called chronology. These events are graphically represented in timeline. So what do you mean by timeline? The graphical representation of chronology is known as timeline. So in the coming chapters you will learn more about the timeline, and in most of the chapters we will have. Okay, let's see that. So now at the end of this lesson we will discuss about the geographical features or geographical framework of our history. Okay, so what is the importance of geographical features of India in shaping its history? The history of India has been greatly influenced by its geographical or physical features, isn't it? So study of history is closely related to the study of geographical features. That means geography and history are interrelated. So in geography, what all things we will learn? We will learn about the types of soil, then rainfall, climate, etc. Right? So the type of soil, rainfall, climate, vegetation and environment greatly influence the human culture and the way of their life. Is it? Let's think about other physical features of India. 6 physical divisions are there, no? So the other mountains like that. So the Himalaya in the north protect our country from invaders, while the long coastline of the peninsular India facilitated the foreign trade. Okay, so the fertile plain helped several kingdoms to flourish in northern and eastern parts of India. So, most ancient towns also flourished on the banks of rivers. For example, Pataliputra on the bank of Ganga. So, with all these points, we can conclude that the geographical features are really influenced the creation or the evolution of our great history. So dear kids, now let's have a conclusion of our chapter in the form of mind map. So in this chapter we have learned the sources of history, that is archaeological sources and literary sources. So in archaeological sources we learned about fossils, monuments, artifacts, coins and inscriptions. Okay, so here come to the next, literary sources, manuscripts, and I have one more thing to show you about the manuscript. See, it was written on paper. See, can you see the manuscript written over a paper? See the beauty. So I don't know, something related to English or something. Okay, good. These are manuscripts. Okay, so and scripts and language. And one more thing, that is ancient literature. Then we learned about the time frame of our history. It was divided into two, before the birth of Jesus Christ and after the birth of Jesus Christ, that is BCE, okay, and CE. And at the end we learned about the geographical framework of our history. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed the video. So I will be back with the next chapter. Till then, bye bye.